Welcome to Team G503. I am your host, Scott Schiller.
And I'm your hostess, Cher Schiller. And in this video, we will be removing the rear axle and the rear leaf springs off a 1943 Jeep Willys MB.
That's what we're going to be doing.
To begin the process, remove the wheels from the axle. You'll notice here there's an L on the studs. That means they're left-hand threaded lug nuts. Loosen the lug nuts by turning them to the right.
Loosen all the lug nuts, but do not remove them before you jack the vehicle off of the ground.
Jack the rear end up so the wheels will spin freely. Finish removing the lug nuts by hand.
The left-handed thread lug nuts will be tagged and bagged and set aside as to not be confused with the right-handed lug nuts on the opposite side of the Jeep.
Remove the wheel from the axle.
The passenger side lug nuts are right-handed threads, so they remove by turning them to the left.
Lower and support the axle on a pair of jackstands.
Support the rear cross member of the frame with a pair of jackstands.
Remove the nuts from the U-bolts.
After the 4 nuts have been removed from the U-bolts, you can remove the spring plate mount and the U-bolts from the tube of the axle. Here's my spring plate. It has a little damage on the inside ring here where you'd put the outside of your shock absorber.
Remove the cotter pin from the greasable bolt. This one has been damaged and proves to be a little bit difficult to remove.
Using a wrench and a socket, loosen the nut on the greasable bolt until the threads of the bolt are covered. Then use a soft face mallet to tap the bolt and remove it from the frame.
You can now remove the nut from the greasable bolt.
Remove the nut, but at this point, leave the bolt inside the spring assembly and the frame. Hold the spring assembly with one hand while removing the greasable bolt with the other. You can then gently lower the spring assembly to the floor.
Remove the threaded bushing from the spring side of the shackle.
Both of the threaded bushings on the shackle on the driver's side are right-hand threaded, which means they are removed by turning them to the left. Once you get them loose enough, you can undo the bushing by hand and remove the spring assembly from the shackle and lower it gently to the ground.
Remove the bushing from the top side or frame location of the shackle.
The bushing on the top side of the shackle is threaded into threads that are actually in the frame, as well as threaded onto the shackle itself. The frame bushing on the passenger side is left-handed threads, so it can be removed by turning the bushing to the right. This is the only difference in disassembling the passenger side.
Repeat the removal process on the passenger side. Raise the axle with a jack from the jack stand.
Remove the jack stand and replace it with a rollable furniture dolly. You can see here I'm lowering the brake drum side of the axle onto this particular dolly. Then I'll jack the opposite side and place the differential onto a dolly. I positioned the rear axle a little bit differently on the furniture dollies than I did the front axle. If you notice here, I've got the differential seated on one of the dollies. This just makes it easier as the rear differential seems to want to roll a lot more on the dollies than the front. Thank you for watching.
And if you'd like to follow, subscribe to Team G503 on YouTube.
Until next time, my friends, keep it safe.
And happy Jeepin'.
Happy Jeepin'.